When I was 16, something chilling happened when I was playing Skate 3 on Xbox with my brother one night. It was an average night around 22:30 p.m. Me and my little brother were joking around and hitting people with the skateboard in the game. My mom, my aunt, my dad and my uncle were at the mall shopping and watching a movie, so we were having a blast playing and calling our friends from school on Skype. Suddenly, my brother tells me that he saw something moving really quick in the living room window. I stopped, looked, but nothing, so we continued. About 15 minutes later, we hear something in the backyard, like some footsteps. We were both getting really scared already. We told our friends, "Damn, guys, there's something weird going on here." We heard footsteps and my brother saw something in the window. I wasted no time and went to the back door to make sure it was locked. And when I came back through the kitchen, I saw what was causing our fear. In the window, there was a homeless-looking man, staring into the window, looking at my brother. Protective mode turned on. I told my brother we had to go upstairs and call somebody immediately. I took my brother to his room and went to check out if the man was still there, grabbing one of those meat tenderizers from the kitchen. I went back to the window where I saw him before. Not there. So I ran back to the front door to make sure it was locked. The deadbolt and the knob both were locked. I ran back upstairs with my meat tenderizer to check on my little bro. I called the cops and my dad. The cops would take half an hour and my dad and relatives were like 50 minutes away. And when I thought the situation was about to get better, I hear a window shattering and the sound of boots walking around the main floor. Dude, I could hear this guy walking downstairs. I was completely terrified. I whispered to my lil brother to stay quiet, trying to keep my own voice steady, and I said we should hide in the closet for more safety. The next few minutes passed like hours. We listened as he moved downstairs, opening drawers and cabinets. It looked like he was searching for something. I prayed he wouldn't come upstairs. I could hear my brother's quiet sobs and tried to comfort him, but I was barely holding it together myself. Then the footsteps started to climb the stairs. Man, I held my breath, clutching the meat tenderizer tightly. The sound grew closer and closer until he was right outside the room door. The doorknob turned slowly, and the door creaked open. I could see his silhouette through the crack in the closet door that faced the door of the room. He had a really scary facial expression. Looked like he was scared. My grip on the meat tenderizer tightened, ready to strike if he opened the closet. Just then, a noise from outside startled him. A car pulling into the driveway, headlights illuminating the living room through the shattered window. The man froze for a moment, then bolted back down the stairs. I heard the back door slam open and the sound of him running away. I waited a few minutes, making sure he was really gone before I emerged from the closet with my little brother. I peeked out the window and saw my neighbor's car pulling out of the driveway. They must have come home early, scaring the intruder away. I breathed a sigh of relief but knew we weren't safe yet. I called my dad again, updating him on the situation. He told me to stay put, that they were rushing home as fast as they could. I then checked all the windows and doors, making sure they were secure despite the broken window. I moved a heavy dresser in front of the door for extra protection and armed myself with a kitchen knife this time. The police arrived about 10 minutes after the guy ran out. I explained everything to them, my brother still clinging to me. They did a sweep of the house and the surrounding area but found no sign of the intruder. They assured us they would patrol the neighborhood for the rest of the night and asked if we had anywhere else to go. But I insisted we stayed. I didn't want to leave our home. When my parents finally got home, they hugged us tightly, relieved we were okay. The police took their statements and we spent the rest of the night in the living room, unable to sleep, too goddamn afraid. The next day, we installed new locks and a security system. Man, it took a long time before we felt safe again. I later found out that 2 houses in the area had similar break-ins. The police never caught the guy, but the increased patrols seemed to have scared him off for good. The memory of that night scares me, and we still live in this house today. I've seen many things, but I'll tell the scariest shit I've ever seen. Also, other person saw it too, not just me. I was about 10 years old, and I was watching a movie called Donnie Darko with my dad in the living room. My mom was in her room packing some stuff. We were going to take a vacation in Mexico. Well, when me and my dad were watching the movie, he asked my mom something about the luggage, but she didn't respond at first. We could just hear her packing the stuff, so we just continued the movie. Suddenly, my mom calls for my dad. "Honey, come here," she said. He got up and went to their room. Keep in mind that I went there with him too. But she was different. My dad noticed it too. She looked expressionless. Her eyes were weird, man. They just talked about the clothes, and Dad gave her a worried look. She wasn't looking what she always looked like. We soon went back to the living room until we were almost finishing the movie, and then my mom called my dad again, now just shouting his name. "Just a second, man. I'll be right back," he said to me. And that's when things take a creepy-ass turn. He went there in their room with her, and she was gone. He started calling for her, but nothing. We were already worried as hell. We sat there on the couch, and after a few minutes, guess who called my dad on his phone? "Mom, honey, I'm here at the grocery store buying some things really quick. Okay? I'll be back in a minute," she said. My dad told her, "Honey, wasn't you right here packing the clothes literally a few minutes ago?" She responded, "No, I've been here at the grocery store for like an hour. What you mean?" Man, my dad just looked at me confused as the living hell. He just said to her, "Well, okay then, I must have heard things." And the call was over. He didn't know what to say. Then he told me where she was, and I never got chills like that in my life. I remember it as if it was yesterday. I've seen things with my friends, but nah, man, this was different. We just waited for her in the living room, and she didn't take long to come back home. When she got there, she looked at us sitting on the couch and asked, "Why are y'all like this? You guys looked like you have seen a ghost." "Well, honey, that's about right," my dad said. Then we told her what we seen. She was even wearing different clothes. To this day, we still talk about this with all the friends and family. And of course, nobody has an explanation for this. After one more year in that house, we moved, which was a big relief low-key. My mom was the one who wanted the most to move out after we told her the story. Oh my God, man. I'll never forget those expressionless eyes. This happened in 2018. On a Friday night, I was in my room working on my computer. And after getting some stuff done, I decided to play some Call of Duty with my friends. They were inviting me to play and calling me on Discord. So I did just that, logged in the game and started carrying my noob-ass friends. My dog Sadie was in the hallway outside my door sleeping. And all of a sudden, Sadie starts making all kinds of racket, jumping round, howling, barking, growling, and everything. "Hey guys, I'll be right back." I told my friends and went to see what was up with her. Then I heard it, "Ah, that's a good girl," in a male voice. It didn't sound like my little brother, and that day he would get home later in the night. But anyways, I really thought it was him. "Hey man, you're home early," I said, thinking is my lil bro as I opened the door. And as soon as I opened it, there was no one at all. Just Sadie wagging her tail and staring at the empty hallway. I decided to do check all over the house with my butterfly knife, and there was literally nobody. I felt a big chill down my spine. Sadie wasn't the type to react this way for no reason, and hearing a voice that wasn't my brother's unnerved me. I slowly walked back to my room, gripping my butterfly knife tighter, feeling a sense of unease settle over me. I decided to just call my friends back on Discord to keep myself occupied. I locked myself and Sadie in my room and explained everything to my friends. As I was trying to focus on the game, I heard a creak from downstairs. It was faint, but distinct enough to catch my attention. I paused, listening intently. Sadie started growling again, this time with more intensity. Guys, something weird is going on. Sadie's freaking out and I heard a noise downstairs. I told my friends. They started joking around, telling me it was probably my mind or the house settling. Determined to figure out what was happening, I muted my mic and headed downstairs, Sadie following closely behind. The house was eerily quiet. I checked the living room, the kitchen, and even the laundry room. Everything seemed normal. Just as I was about to head back upstairs, I heard a soft thud coming from the basement. My heart pounded in my chest as I approached the basement door. I flicked on the light switch, but the bulb didn't turn on. Of course, now the bulb decides to die, I muttered to myself. Grabbing a flashlight from the kitchen drawer, I slowly opened the basement door. At the bottom of the stairs, I swept the flashlight around, illuminating the dusty corners of the basement. Everything seemed in place until I noticed the small open window on the far wall. I was certain it had been closed earlier. I walked over and shut it, locking it firmly. I turned to leave when something sinister caught my eye, a muddy footprint on the basement floor. I quickly scanned the room again, but there was no one. I hurried back upstairs, locking the basement door behind me. Back in my room, I sat back at my desk. Should I call the police? What would I even say? Hi, I think someone might have been in my house, but I'm not sure. I don't know, dude, it sounded ridiculous. As I sat there, debating my next move, Sadie started barking furiously again. I jumped up, adrenaline surging through me. This time, her barking was directed towards the backyard. I ran to the window and peered outside. Under the dim light of the porch, I could make out a figure standing by the back fence, staring directly at the house. I froze. The figure was tall, wearing dark clothes and a ski mask. Panic gripped me. I grabbed my phone and called the cops. As I explained the situation to the 911 dispatcher, the figure turned and disappeared into the darkness. The police arrived within minutes. They searched the yard and surrounding area but found no trace of this guy. They took my statement and promised to keep an eye on the neighborhood, but there wasn't much else they could do. After that, I came back to the game with my friends to try to calm myself down, and it actually worked, and they started to believe me. It's disturbing how if I didn't have a dog, it would probably be some really bad news. I love Sadie. When I lived in Europe, there was this abandoned house 2 or 3 blocks from my house. The previous owner moved out to Florida 20 years prior and he never sold it. I lost a bet with my friends, and I needed to go inside the damn house and film it. So I got a flashlight, a camera, a knife for protection, and just went for it. I got there at 3 p.m. and pushed the window open. I went inside and started with the basement. In the basement, there were some instruments, a rifle collection, old World War II posters, what seemed to be a signed Michael Jackson poster, and some other really cool shit that no one should ever leave behind. I found an old wedding picture with what looked like blood on it. I was filming the whole thing. On the main was the kitchen with an old fridge. When I opened it, I felt the most horrible smell I've ever felt in my life. Smelled like death itself, but there wasn't anything that could smell that bad. Inside were empty beer cans and some blood. When I started walking upstairs, I heard a woman crying from one of the side rooms. That's when I freaked the hell out. I stood frozen at the bottom of the stairs, every instinct screaming at me to run, but my dumbass thought it would be cool to show my friends. So my grip tightened around my knife as I cautiously ascended each step. As I reached the top, I paused a little, then I found a narrow corridor. Then I heard it again. I could picture the direction the crying was coming from. Sounded like it was coming from a bedroom in the end of the corridor. The door to the room was slightly opened. I nudged the door open with the flashlight, illuminating the room inside. At this point, it was 5 p.m., starting to get dark, so I tried to rush it. I saw a bedroom with a dusty four-poster bed and a cracked mirror on the wall. The crying seemed to come from a closet on the far side of the room. I was sure about it. I approached it slowly. Reaching the closet, I took a deep breath and yanked the door open. To my shock, it was empty. The crying abruptly stopped, replaced by an eerie silence. I stood there, trying to make sense of what had just happened, when I felt a cold breeze brush past me. I spun around, the flashlight beam darting across the room, but there was nothing there. I took a step back and my foot landed on something soft. I looked down to see a dusty old book laying on the floor, the pages yellowed with age. I picked it up, flipping through the pages, and it was a diary. The entries were dated back to the 1940s, written in neat, cursive handwriting. The last entry sent a shiver down my spine. It spoke of a woman hiding in the house, terrified for her life, and the final line read, "He's here. I can hear him. I pray this diary is found so someone knows what happened to me." I closed the diary scared as the living shit and stuffed it into my backpack. I needed to get out of the house. As I turned to leave, I heard footsteps coming from the back of the house downstairs. Panic set in and I hurried back down the stairs to the front door, nearly tripping over my own feet. I reached the door and looked at the back of the house, curious. As my flashlight beam cut through the darkness, a shadow moved at the hallway, and I could hear heavy breathing. I desperately tried to open the door, but it was stuck, blocking my way out. I retreated into another room looking for a window to get out. There was one, but it was too high to jump from without risking serious injury. I had no choice but to wait and hope whoever was downstairs would leave. I sat in the corner, knife in hand, trying to stay as quiet as possible. Eventually, the sounds grew distant, and I waited a little longer to make sure the coast was clear before quietly heading to the basement cause there was a window there. When I reached it, I slipped out and made a run for it, not stopping until I was safely back in my own home. The next day, I told my friends what happened and showed them the footage. For my surprise, I captured the shadow moving in the back of the house and the crying. My friends were in shock. Years later, I learned that the house had a dark history. During World War II, it had been used as a hideout by resistance fighters. Many had been captured and never seen again, and the woman in the diary was likely one of them. This experience changed me forever. I still think if the spirits of those who suffered there will never leave the house. Just hoping that someone will hear their story and remember them. My mom started dating a guy she met on a dating site in 2015. That part is normal. In fact, I had just started dating my girl who would eventually become my wife, and we also met online on Facebook. Anyway, my wife and I never really liked this guy. He was indeed really weird. He wasn't mean or anything like that, just a little creepy. He kept his eyes closed a lot and occasionally said odd things, like offering my wife a donut, standing with the donut at her face, closing his eyes, and moaning as he held one in his mouth. One time, my wife and I were visiting my mom, right? But her boss called her, and she had to work, so we just waited at her house. Her creepy boyfriend was there too, but the dude spent like 95% of the hours on the porch of the house, sitting and watching the streets. We would hear him talking to himself too. Eventually, my mom and the guy started having difficulties. My wife and I were visiting her for the holidays, and she told us about all the problems between her and this dude. We didn't want to say anything, but later, we told her he was low-key really creepy and suggested that she would be better off without him. She had already decided this before that day, and she broke up with him. It was Christmas, and in the morning we went to visit my dad at his house to spend the day with the rest of the family who went there. The next day, my wife and I thought it was good to go to my mom's house and see if everything was okay. Later, we found out why that was such a good idea. As we pulled up, we saw her ex-boyfriend's car, so we got worried. My mom was at work actually, but he was there. He said hi and mentioned that he had a gift for my mom, so we gave him a fake smile, still worried as hell. As we were waiting for her in the kitchen, he was on the couch watching TV. When he got up to use the bathroom, we saw something terrifying. A small knife slipped out of his pocket and onto the couch. We just looked at each other, worry all over our faces but not really surprised, and got the knife to hide it with us. We went outside to the porch and called my mom, explaining everything. We told her to go to my dad's house after work. There was no way in hell we were letting her come near this dude. She agreed and asked us if we could go to Dad's house too, lock the dude inside and call the police, and that's what we did. The ex-boyfriend came back from the bathroom and didn't seem to notice the missing knife. He sat back down and we watched him carefully, not daring to take our eyes off him. We pulled the phone and called the police, trying to get ready if things escalated. We told them about our plan, and her ex, oblivious to the plan, continued to watch TV as if nothing was amiss. About 15 minutes later, the police called us again to say they were almost there and that we could already go to my dad's house. We grabbed our things and tried to make no noise with the keys, closing the door quietly, locking it. Once outside, we hurried to the car. We got in, started the engine and drove off towards my dad's house, constantly checking the rearview mirror to make sure everything was okay. We arrived at my dad's place and rushed inside. My dad was surprised to see us, and we quickly explained the situation. He reassured us that everything would be fine, but he was worried as hell too. About an hour later, we received a call from the police. They had arrived at my mom's house and found her ex-boyfriend still sitting on the couch, seemingly in a daze. They took him into custody without incident, but what they found next sent heavy chills to us. The police searched his car and discovered a disturbing collection of items: duct tape, rope, and a large hunting knife. It was clear that he had been planning something far more sinister than we had imagined. The officer on the phone told us that we had likely averted a serious threat by calling them when we did. Relief washed over us, but the fear was strong. What if we hadn't been there? What if we hadn't noticed the knife? The questions haunted us as we tried to process the night's events. At 8 p.m., my mom finally came over to my dad's house, visibly shaken but grateful for our quick thinking. We spent the rest of the night together, trying to distract ourselves with movies and light conversation. As the hours passed, the adrenaline began to wear off, replaced by exhaustion. We all decided to get some sleep, knowing we'd need to be up early to deal with the aftermath. My wife and I set up in the guest room, my mom took the couch, and my dad retreated to his bedroom. The next morning, we were all determined to move forward, and we made a plan to help my mom change the locks on her house and install a security system. She also decided to take some time off work to recover from the ordeal. Over the next few days, the police kept us updated on her ex-boyfriend's status, and we were relieved to hear that he would be facing serious charges. Took time, but slowly, things began to return to normal. The experience had brought us even closer together, reminding us of the importance of family. Looking back, I think it's always important to check if someone who's creepy is trying to plan something. He was eventually convicted and sent to prison for years. At least knowing he was behind bars gave us some peace of mind. In the end, we were grateful for each other and for the quick response of the police. It was a terrifying experience, but it had a realistic and believable resolution. We moved forward with a new sense of caution, always mindful of the potential dangers that could lurk behind seemingly normal things.